Good afternoon. Welcome to the News Roundup for Friday, August 22nd, 2025. The weekend is upon us. This is the BIP, the Brilliance in Podcasting Network, and I'm your host, Bill Thomas, a board-certified podcastologist, now board-certified in all 50 U.S. states, a bunch of foreign countries as well. It is the Aloha Friday edition of the program. We've got some intriguing stories to share with you today, and here's what's happening right now on the Big Roundup. We begin with this: Russia's top diplomat shooting down the near-term possibility of a critical face-to-face meeting between the leader of his country and Ukraine. Authorities confirm that famine is plaguing parts of Gaza as Israel ramps up their new military offensive, and the Pentagon issuing a game-changing order concerning National Guard troops who are patrolling our nation's capital right now. Also, America's leading aircraft manufacturer is laser-focused on a gargantuan sale to China, and hopeful contestants from across the globe gather to crown a brand new champion. We'll tell you all about the six-string competition that's got them rocking, rolling, and jumping all over the stage. Everybody wants to be Eddie Van Halen. Yeah, all this and more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with breaking news out of Moscow, which, for now, it's putting on the back burner any possibility of a head-to-head meeting between both the leaders of Russia and Ukraine to negotiate an end to the brutal war between their two countries. Russia's top diplomat says that at some point in the future, Russian President Vladimir Putin will gladly sit down with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to hammer out a peace agreement, but not until all of the unresolved sticking points, which are holding up a deal, have been ironed out by other high-level officials. You got to know that Russia and Ukraine still remain extremely far apart when it comes to settling their differences. And according to sources inside Russia, Putin's conditions for ending the war now include demands that Ukraine give up the entire Donbass region, sacrifice their ambition to join NATO, and keep all Western troops entirely out of their country. Now, meanwhile, the European Union's chief diplomat also weighing in. He warns that right now Putin is laying an enormous trap for the entire West, and that granting any of his demands, especially when it comes to giving up land, it amounts to rewarding the brutal aggressor responsible for initiating this war. The EU official points out that so far all peace discussions revolve around concessions made by Ukraine, while Russia hasn't made a single compromise yet. Goes on to say that Russia clearly does not want peace, that they're obviously dragging their feet when it comes to cutting any type of ceasefire agreement, and that Putin is simply laughing at the West and killing more people than ever. So, Ukrainian President Zelensky says that the Russians are doing everything they can to avoid a face-to-face summit, says that Moscow simply doesn't want to end the war at all, and that now more than ever, the U.S. and Europe, they've got to stick together. And I've been watching. We are sticking together. For his part, NATO's top official says that President Trump is doing all he can to break the deadlock and bringing an end to the war, including by pledging American support for any security guarantees backed by the West, which would protect Ukraine from any Russian aggression in the future. Now, in the meantime, the war, it rages on, with Ukraine responding to a devastating recent air attack by using long-range weapons to target critical energy sites in Russia, including a number of oil refineries and pipelines. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This is clearly one of those bad news, good news stories. Well, the bad news is that Vladimir Putin has not yet agreed to a sit-down meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, and he's opting instead to press ahead with his brutal, vicious, and barbaric assault against Ukraine. Absolutely nothing would be lost were these two leaders to sit down, meet face-to-face, and try to find some common ground. But for now, Putin simply refuses to budge. What makes this even more reprehensible is that the Trump administration has done everything in its power to bring all sides together, work toward a ceasefire, and bring an end to this war. Trump has met separately, as you'll recall, with Putin and Zelensky. All of our European allies have been involved in high-level meetings as well, and the only thing which is stalling an end to this cruel war, clearly Russia's president. Now, there is a glimmer of hope. Putin has not completely ruled out the possibility of a meeting with Zelensky, but he's got an absurd and long list of demands which he claims must be met prior to any formal sit-down. For now, there are no legitimate indications that Russia has any interest in ending this war. Ukraine is doing all they can to stay afloat, and moving forward, all of Europe, the U.S. as well, will stand firmly in support of President Zelensky and his battered country. With that, we turn to producer Davey. Dave, you are joining us now from the home base in Washington, D.C. It's kind of an on and off. Some days we're feeling pretty optimistic about all these developments. Other days, not so much. And how are you feeling today?
I think things are moving in the wrong direction, Bill.
I do too. And there is hope. At one point, they might sit down and talk, but it kind of feels like Vladimir Putin is playing the whole world, playing Ukraine, playing the U.S., playing all of our European allies, and all at the same time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like there's no indication he's going to sit down anytime soon for another summit with anybody.
Yeah, well, it's not over till it's over. Peace is still possible, but you might have a different viewpoint. If you do, and drop us an email. We're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And Davey, let's go to the email bag. I imagine a lot of folks have a lot of thoughts and comments, so who's up first?
Okay, here's one from Logan, who's writing to us today from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Bill.
Very good. Logan, what's on your mind? Isn't Fort Bragg a military town?
It is indeed. It doesn't say whether Logan is military or not, but it is a military town.
Okay.
He writes, the EU is correct. Putin has no intention of giving up a single thing. However, he is willing to return a small sliver of Ukraine that he's stolen. Enough is enough already, and it's time to put boots on the ground.
Well, we're not going to put our boots on the ground. President Trump has made that very clear. We have supported Ukraine at every possible juncture, financially, with military hardware as well, with any kind of aid that we can help them out with. But no, President Trump has made that very clear. Our boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine. I appreciate you checking in, Logan. And Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's one with a question for you from Debbie in Denver, Colorado.
Debbie, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Debbie says, Trump promised to end this war on day one, and like it or not, now it's worse than it's ever been. Assuming nothing changes and sanctions don't work, what would you have him do next?
Well, it's not just you in terms of President Trump. It's not what I would have him do next. This is not President Trump's war. This is a war that began on the previous administration's watch, Joe Biden's watch. Additionally, Trump has just brought in to kind of clean things up. He's trying to be the master negotiator, the negotiator in chief, and he's up against a real complicated foe in Vladimir Putin. And again, it's not just Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump, it's Ukraine, it's all of our European allies as well. So never assume this all falls on Donald Trump. It's not his responsibility. I grant you your point. He did say he'd have this ended on day one, but a lot of things have happened. A lot of things have transgressed since he took office, and it's just something he's got to put up with each day and find a way out. Also, Putin's demands, which are growing all the time. He wants all the captured territories. He's got 20% of Ukraine right now, the entire Donbass region as well. He wants Ukraine to stay out of NATO, which isn't exactly a deal breaker. I think they'll come to terms on that. And he's also saying he wants no Western troops on the ground, and Donald Trump has agreed to that. We will not put our troops on the ground. Putin also wants to dictate the limits on the size of the Ukrainian army. He just keeps making more and more demands. He's trying to lengthen this war out. He's trying to play everybody out. And in time, since he's already got 20%, I think in the back of his mind, he can keep moving further and further west. So Ukraine should be highly concerned. The rest of Europe should be on high alert as well. All right, change things up here just a bit and turn our attention now to a dire warning coming out of the Middle East, which seemingly confirms what a number of aid groups have been claiming for months now. The world's leading authority on food emergencies now saying that, in their opinion, the largest city in the Gaza Strip is officially suffering from famine, and that unless drastic efforts are soon taken, starvation is likely to spread all across the territory. The group is called the IPC, which monitors food security. They say that right now, more than 500,000 people in Gaza facing what they call catastrophic levels of hunger, and that many of them are currently at risk of dying from malnutrition-related causes. The group goes on to say that both war and the Israeli blockade of critical humanitarian assistance directly responsible for creating the starvation in Gaza. They also say that the widespread displacement of the Palestinian population, as well as the total collapse of Gaza's food production, are making things far worse. As a result, the Secretary General of the UN now calling for an immediate ceasefire throughout the entire enclave. Says the findings clearly show that the entire disaster is man-made. He calls it both a moral indictment and a complete failure of humanity itself. An awful lot to take in there. You should know that doctors and nurses in Gaza say they've recently seen a significant increase in the number of people seeking medical aid because they're starving. They say the lack of food is being compounded by the absence of clean water, and that diseases, they're harder to recover from when people are malnourished. Makes perfect sense. Now, for his part, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is rejecting the conclusions of the report, saying that Israel does not promote starvation and calling the findings an outright lie, which is promoted by Hamas. He also says that as of now, the Israeli military still intends to move ahead with their plans to take control of Gaza City. At the same time, he claims that negotiations currently underway concerning a deal which would return all of the remaining hostages to Israel and hopefully bring an end to this war. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, we live in a phenomenally wealthy world, and that anybody, anywhere, is at any time and for any reason starving. It's completely inexcusable. As a result of the war against Israel led by Hamas terrorists, Israel has rightfully fought back and fought back hard. That Hamas has and continues to use innocent civilians as their shields in this war, absolutely reprehensible. As a result of being invaded and savagely attacked, Israel has moved into Gaza to hunt down Hamas leaders and do all they can to effect the return of their hostages. And in the meantime, food supplies and other desperately needed aid not effectively reaching the civilian population. We all know that. And in fact, people are starving. But to blame Israel for famine in Gaza, as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pointed out, is completely unfounded. People are starving, people are dying, but there are also accounts of Hamas and looters complicating the methods by which aid is being delivered to Gaza residents. A bottom line here, as a direct byproduct of a war which Hamas initiated against Israel, innocent people are in desperate need of food, water, and other critical aid, and Israel simply can't be held accountable for the suffering. Hamas can effectively bring this war to a conclusion by simply returning all the hostages to Israel, agreeing to a ceasefire, and by humanely participating, sincerely taking part in a long-term peace process. We are in the middle of a humanitarian crisis. And chime in right now with your thoughts and ideas, your comments as well. We are at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Dave, another hot topic. It's tough to talk about, especially on a Friday. Heading into the weekend, it kind of feels a bit depressing, but it's something we all have to pay attention to and address day by day. So what are folks saying about this one?
Well, certainly I think everybody hopes that things get better.
Yeah.
We have one here from Olive, who's writing to us from Bozeman, Montana.
Hello, Olive. What's on your mind?
Olive says, I support Israel, but there's no defense for what they're doing to the civilian population of Gaza. They're responsible for the blockade, they're the ones keeping the food from coming in, and they've blown up the whole place.
Yeah. Well, they haven't blown up the whole place. They've simply moved into Gaza to try to track down those Hamas terrorists. Israel simply wants to defeat Hamas. That's the main goal here. President Trump wants to defeat Hamas as well. They want their hostages returned, and they want them right now. They don't want to bargain with Hamas. You can't bargain with Hamas. President Trump has said he wants to destroy Hamas. Israel wants to destroy Hamas as well. We all know Hamas terrorists. They are a proxy of Iran, and even if they are destroyed and pushed out of that region, another proxy will pop up. Hezbollah will take over. Some other terrorist group will take over. Iran's behind a lot of it. But if we can, in fact, push Hamas out of that territory, I think we'll do all we can to restore order to the Gaza Strip. And as President Trump said not too long ago, he had kind of designs on relocating all of the Palestinians taking over the Gaza Strip and building a marvelous enclave right there on the Mediterranean Sea. This is a beautiful chunk of territory. The only drawback is we shouldn't be doing it alone. We should be doing it with all of our global allies and just reunifying that entire area, making it safe for Israel while providing at the same time housing, safety, and protection for all the people of Gaza. David, who's up next?
Okay, Bill. Here's one from Dove in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Hello, Dove. Welcome to the program. State your business.
Dove says, by doing what they've done, Israel has alienated the entire world except for the U.S. They should know better, and they should have taken the high road instead of wallowing in the gutter with Hamas.
Well, by taking the high road, if you're suggesting they should just take that attack, Hamas invaded Israel, you'll recall, a couple of years ago. If you're suggesting they should just put their arms up and say, sorry, we bothered you, while Hamas terrorists were flying into their country, pillaging their country, attacking, torturing, kidnapping an untold number of Israelis. I think you got that kind of backward. Israel is a small country. It's a very strong country. They have every right to defend themselves. They have defended themselves very well. There's no logical excuse for you to defend Hamas terrorists. They are the murderers. They are the thugs. They're the ones who brought this war on out of the middle of nowhere. Israel is the victim, and they've done nothing more than fight back. It's a great tragedy what's happening in the Gaza Strip right now. There is starvation. There is a large number of people who are malnourished as well. There is famine in that region. But to blame it all on Israel, that doesn't make any sense. They are the victim. The attacker is Hamas. They are responsible for anything wrong in that entire region. Going to press ahead now and switch things up just a bit and turn our attention to a story now concerning the Pentagon, the National Guard, and President Trump's amazing pledge to make our nation's capital great once again. In a significant change of policy, the Defense Department now ordering all National Guard troops which are patrolling the streets of Washington to begin carrying firearms. Right now, more than 2,000 National Guard troops are currently walking the streets of D.C., including members from a half a dozen Republican-led states who have joined the Legion in order to support the president's promise to crack down on crime, homelessness, and illegal immigration in our capital city. According to President Trump, the deployment of these Guard troops have already been a tremendous success. Says that before they arrived, the city was a complete hellhole. Those were their words. However, thanks to a near miracle, D.C. is now becoming totally safe. Says that right now he's weighing whether or not to extend the deployment of both National Guard troops and federal agents in Washington so they can kind of finish the job and keep the city safe. However, not everyone agrees with Trump's decision regarding the deployment of Guard troops in D.C., with one former military official saying that the decision to allow those troops to carry firearms is a recipe for disaster. He says most National Guard members don't have the right training to do the job they're being asked to do. I disagree. And that they're being put in a no-win situation. No, a no-win situation is putting Guard troops on the streets and having them not armed. This is a win situation. If you're going to guard the streets, you're going to need some kind of arms. You're going to need rifles. You're going to need handguns. You're going to need tasers. Why let the bad guys run around town with the guns and telling the National Guard to put their guns away? It doesn't make a lick of sense. And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This is tragically absurd. Washington has gotten so out of control that the President of the United States actually has to deploy members of the National Guard to take back the city. This should absolutely embarrass my esteemed colleague, the mayor of Washington, D.C., the Honorable Muriel Bowser, Ms. B. Now, David, there was also a pop band in the early 70s called Sha Na Na. The lead singer was Bowser. Was that a different Bowser?
Yes, it was a different Bowser, and I don't think they're related, Bill.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just a thought, because same name. Anyone to question the Trump administration for deploying troops? Take a look around town. There's absolutely no excuse for the high levels of crime, the homeless encampments, the filth, and the sense of uneasiness that many people feel when they're trying to move around town. Hey, look, this is our nation's capital city, and once the National Guard is done, the city will have been taken back, the streets cleaned up and made safe. You can't have a problem with that. This city will be the envy of the country, as well it should. Also, hold off on your goofy complaints about Guard personnel being armed. If you have no problems with the gangs, as I mentioned a moment ago, the thugs, the miscreants, and the other ne'er-do-wells arming up and freely walking around town, then you should have no qualms about members of the military being equally fortified. It's common sense. Thugs want to destroy the city. Members of the U.S. military, they are there to protect and restore the city. Hey, what are you thinking? Share your thoughts with us via email. You'll catch up with us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, to the email bag we go. I've been following along as well. They are pouring through. In fact, Aunt Ronnie, my fabulous Aunt Ronnie, checked in. She has a comment to share with us. So if you would, please, let's take her comment first.
Aunt Ronnie's comment?
Yes, please.
Well, I don't really have that one in front of me, Bill.
Well, I'll forward it to you because it's sitting right in front of me. But what do you got?
Okay. Well, I have one from Dudley in Fairfax, Virginia.
Hello, Dudley.
Dudley says, I live near D.C., and before Trump cleaned it up, it was a complete mess.
Yeah.
Now I feel safe going downtown and visiting our beautiful nation's capital once again. Hashtag proud to be an American.
That's beautiful. I appreciate you saying that. You know, if I had an opportunity to walk up and down Washington, D.C., and I had to take my chances against thugs and gangsters and all variety of crime, or walking up and down the street with National Guard on every corner. I'm going to take National Guard. They are there to protect us. It's the U.S. military. You don't know what you're going to get in a lot of our big cities. Here in L.A., we've got crime-riddled streets all over the place. Some neighborhoods are very nice, but near downtown L.A., on the west side, San Fernando Valley, South Bay, there are some real tough neighborhoods. I would love for the military to come in, bring the National Guard in, take over the city, clean things up, and make things safe once again. And who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's one from Aaron in New York City.
Okay, very good.
And Aaron says there are lots of third world military states that post soldiers throughout their capital cities, and now we're one of them. There's a fine line between security and oppression, and that embarrassing hypocrite Trump crossed it long ago.
No, not at all. You're absolutely wrong. I appreciate you checking in. You're more than welcome to check in anytime. But no, he hasn't crossed any line. He's looking at the cities. The cities are in great decline for a number of years, perhaps a number of decades. It was never as bad as it is right now. And I clearly recall that after the pandemic, things just got worse and worse and worse in a number of the big cities that I've visited. I spend most of my time in and around downtown L.A. It's unimaginable with all the homeless encampments, all the drugs, all the crime, all the danger. No, I think he's done the absolute right thing in Washington, D.C. I'm not there, Davey. You are, but you've indicated to me that things can get rough. Certain neighborhoods are very rough, and if it takes bringing in the National Guard to clean our streets up, to take our streets back, and to make our streets safe for all of our fellow Americans, I think the president has done a terrific job. He is spot on with this, and I hope this catches on. I hope this takes on in other big cities as well, not only here in Los Angeles, but other areas on the East Coast. I know areas of New York that are real tough. I hear stories about Philadelphia, Boston, Atlanta, and all over the country. We need to take the country back again. Donald Trump, fine job. Another great success. Now, as we do each and every day on the program, we got to turn to the world of business. And today, an aerospace giant putting the finishing touches on a phenomenal deal that could significantly impact our future trade relations with China. Right now, the Boeing company is finalizing an agreement to sell as many as 500 airplanes to China. And people involved in the negotiations say the deal is at the center of any upcoming trade agreement between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. They say the exact detail of the deal, all the details, they're still being worked out, including the types of jet aircraft which will be involved and when they'll be delivered. They also say the entire agreement, it hinges on our two nations coming to terms and resolving our ongoing trade tensions. Let's get the job done. By the way, former President Joe Biden tried to negotiate a similar deal with Xi Jinping back in 2023. However, that agreement ultimately fell apart. And if this one goes through, it's going to be China's first major purchase of Boeing aircraft since President Trump's earlier term in the White House. So, between 2017 and 2021, Boeing scored a number of significant orders from China, in part thanks to President Trump. However, since then, they've slowed down to a trickle, in large part due to tariffs and trade disagreements. Right now, a comprehensive trade agreement between the U.S. and China not yet been agreed upon, though both President Trump and Treasury Secretary Bessent seem hopeful that they can get one done by the end of the year. Fingers are crossed. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Here's the deal. The U.S. and China will never see eye to eye on everything. But one thing we can all agree on is that we can benefit each other in terms of trade. And this deal sounds like an astronomical win for all parties. For now, this is what you might call a deal in the making, with some obstacles and hurdles to overcome before the agreement could ever legitimately take flight. See what I did there, Davey? Legitimately take flight, trade.
Nicely
Boeing.
done, Bill. Very good.
There, if I say so myself, pretty well done. There are some trade issues which still need to be ironed out, but in time, if the Trump administration and China come to terms on a number of issues, most notably tariffs, this would be an epic win for Boeing, with increased revenues, market dominance, job creation, and more. This would also be an epic win for the U.S. Think about it. Tons of money being poured into the economy. And clearly, China would come out on top by adding to their country just hundreds of world-class aircraft responsible for keeping their country moving. Hey, the U.S., we're open for business, and business is thriving. Your thoughts and comments, questions as well, always welcome. And we are at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, I hope people are in agreement. This is good business. It's good for the country. What are they saying?
They are largely in agreement, Bill. I think it would be hard to argue against this one.
How do you argue?
Stu from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, Stu, what's on your mind?
Says it's another spectacular success for the Trump administration. They're saving our country one deal at a time and saving the best for last.
Yeah, this is not just one deal, but one enormous deal. Think about that, 500 aircraft. Boeing recently lost their top executive in China, if you haven't heard about that. Boeing's current CEO rapidly trying to turn the company around. They have had some safety issues in recent years. Also, this deal, if you don't know, it could be worth tens of billions of dollars. And that kind of hinges on what kind of aircraft we're going to be selling to China if the deal comes to fruition. 737s go for so much, 767s, 787s, and so on. The different aircraft, they generate different levels of income. But if this deal comes to pass, this will be great. And if it doesn't come to pass, it's very important it does. China could very easily go to Europe and do business with Airbus. We don't want that. We want the business right here. Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's one from Wilma in Seattle, Washington.
My second favorite Wilma, and you know who my first favorite Wilma is, Davey, yes?
I can only imagine that it's Wilma Flintstone.
Mrs. Flintstone, but this is an entirely different Wilma. Wilma, what are you thinking?
Wilma says there's only one small catch to this Boeing deal.
Okay.
And that's President Trump. I'm a big fan, and I can't wait to see how he wiggles his way out of this one.
What does that mean, wiggles his way out of it? This is a deal. He's got to get the tariff situation, the trade situation squared up with China. Boeing is going to benefit from this enormously, as will China. We're going to benefit as well. There's nothing to squirm out of. This will benefit Donald Trump. This will benefit his legacy. This will benefit the Trump administration. And more importantly, it'll benefit all of us as Americans. A massive trade deal. It's going to pump enormous amount of money into our economy. Everybody wins. There's nothing for him to wiggle out of. You got that one kind of backwards, but I still appreciate you checking in, and I dig the name. Wilma, it's very lovely. All right, before we dive into the lighter side of news, I know you've come to expect that. Just a few headlines we want to update you on. And a story we shared with you yesterday. Convicted murderer, Beverly Hills murderer, Eric Menendez has just been denied parole by authorities in California. He will remain behind bars. You remember that sentence, life behind bars, life without parole. Meanwhile, right now, his older brother, Lyle, currently in the process of making his bid for freedom by pleading his case in front of the state parole board. Also today, both Texas and California moving ahead with plans to redraw their congressional districts in each of their respective states. Why? Well, they got that goofy goal of gaining a majority of seats in Congress. In next year's midterm elections, this is a full-fledged fight. They're going to duke it out. Also on Wall Street, here's some great news. The Dow skyrockets by nearly 850 points, reaching an all-time high of more than 45,600 today. Check your 401k. You're going to be very happy, and that's going to lead you into a beautiful weekend. And now it is time for us to charge over to the part of the program we like to call the lighter side of news, where we take a charming look at a few eye-opening stories which are guaranteed to bring a smile to your face and possibly a tear to your eye. Kick things off today with a sweet story about a former lawyer discovering his lifelong passion after retiring, and his guilty pleasure involves collecting tens of thousands of candy dispensers. Well, there's a hobby. He's a retired attorney from Southern California, right here in my hometown, says that ever since he called it quits 6 years ago, he's managed to collect more than 20,000 different Pez dispensers. Remember Pez dispensers? Ranging from pop culture icons to U.S. presidents. No fooling. Says so far he's dropped more than 50 grand on what he calls his addiction, and that whenever he saw a dispenser he didn't have, he simply went and got it at any cost. Says that he's ready to move on from his enormous collection, and that eventually he hopes to pass it along to someone who will love and cherish it the way that he does. No one's going to love and cherish your goofy Pez dispenser collection. In the meantime, he says he can't eat too much of the candy because it comes with the dispensers, because he apparently is diabetic. Powerfully interesting story. And those Pez candies, I'll admit it, they were kind of a treat all those years ago. Now, I saw the picture of this guy's house. I don't know if we have a graphic of that, a picture of that, but I saw the guy's house, thousands of those Pez dispensers up on the shelves, and it's a mighty impressive collection. I saw the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs dispenser, Mickey Mouse, the Muppets, the rock band Kiss. Remember Kiss, Davey, the big rock band?
Of course, they're going to be honored at the Kennedy Center by President Trump coming up.
I Want to Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. They're a big hit. And if you like ballads, they had a fabulous song called Beth all those years ago. Also, the Pez dispenser featuring basketball superstar LeBron James. I also saw the fast food restaurant dispensers, the President's dispensers as well. But, however, Producer Davey, I humbly submit to you this. Are you sitting down? I want you to take this in.
Okay, Bill, sitting and anxiously awaiting your comment.
Look, that entire collection is absolutely useless, worthless, and entirely incomplete because nowhere in that collection, I saw the graphic, I saw the picture, nowhere in that collection is the News Roundup Pez dispenser. And if you can find one of those on eBay, they fetch a pretty penny. Do you have any of those, Davey, the News Roundup Pez dispensers?
No, I gave them all away, Bill.
You should have sold them. Don't give them away. I just said they fetch a pretty penny. I got to say, this collection, because it doesn't have the News Roundup dispenser, it counts as an epic fail. Now then, Producer Davey, lead us by the hand very gently to the Fast Food Friday portion of the Big News Roundup, and which five-star eatery is making headlines today.
Bill, you know my favorite restaurant, and that's the only one I really want to talk about.
Okay, let's open things up just a bit and take a gigantic bite out of an enormous new menu item, only at the world's greatest fast food joint. McDonald's now offering up an amazing new sandwich called the Big Arch. Never heard of that one. The colossal burger, they say, comes with a couple of mouth-watering quarter-pound patties, 3 slices of gooey melted cheese, which counts for about, maybe a quarter a pound of cheese, lettuce, pickles, and a whole bunch of onions. And the entire monstrosity is lathered in a brand-new secret sauce. Oh. So far, the Big Arch getting positively golden reviews from fans. But before you get your hopes up and head down the street to try one, some bad news to share with you. Right now, the new double-decker sandwich only available in certain international markets, places like the UK, France, and Australia. Meaning if you get a craving for one this summer, which is almost over, you'll have to hop on a plane to get one. Now, Davey, a couple of questions for you. First off, you mentioned this new monstrosity has a secret sauce. What's the secret? I work here. Why do you have secrets from me? Tell me the secret sauce.
Bill, if I told you the secret sauce, it wouldn't be a secret.
Good point. Also sounds like what you're saying is it's 2 quarter-pounder cheese with cheese sandwiches. And I know they're pretty pricey, but do they come with portable defibrillators? Because you whiff down a couple of them burgers and a big bucket of fries and 40 ounces of Coke, your veins are going to start constricting a little bit, right? So do you get a portable defibrillator with that?
I don't know. For some people, it would be considered health food compared to what they normally eat.
Yes, McDonald's health food. There's a novel idea. As a McDonald's friend, fan, fanatic, and an insider, Davey, can you pull some strings and square away the News Roundup crew with a handful of these culinary delights? And mind you, I'm not asking on my behalf. It's engineer Jamie. She's a big fan of McDonald's, and she wants to know if she can pull some strings. And can you help her out, Davey?
You know, Bill, if you guys forward me the cash, I'm sure we could arrange it.
Be a team player. Get us some Golden Arches grub. Now, I forgot to ask you, do you have any McD's former menu items you'd like to bring back, Dave? In other words, if you were a franchisee, an item they had years ago they don't have anymore, what would you bring back?
Well, the McRib. Yeah, I don't think that's around too much anymore. That was always pretty tasty,
seasonal,
actually.
Right.
Should be on the menu always.
Anything else or just the McRib?
Well, I think that's where I would start. I don't know about some of their breakfast stuff, but, you know, they never go wrong, Bill.
You know, for a trip down memory lane, they also had an ice cream treat decades ago called the Triple Ripple, and for a time they experimented with the McPizza. Might not have been the greatest pizza, but you know what they say about pizza, Davey, right?
I do, Bill, but why don't you tell us?
They say that when pizza is good, it's pretty good. And when it's bad, it's still pretty good, even when it's McPizza. And in the early 90s, they were serving up the McLobster, later called the Lobster Roll. And Dave, if you're like me, when you think lobster, you think McDonald's. Now then, McDavey, enough about long-lost McD's menu items. And where do we go from here?
Okay, Bill, let's jump on over to our next story and pluck a few strings out of the air.
Okay, finally today, we turn up the volume, crank this story up to 11, just like we are Spinal Tap, and tell you all about a musical competition involving contestants from all over the planet. This weekend, more than a dozen passionate performers are convening at the Air Guitar World Championship in Finland for a chance to snag the coveted mythical crown. Every participant gets to pick a couple of songs, and then they have 2 minutes each to strut the stage, do jump splits, and pluck at their imaginary instruments using whatever props and costumes they desire. I'm trying to do the story, and on the monitor right over there, Davey, I can see you playing air guitar. Stop that. It's a distraction. I can see you out of the corner of my eye. Stop doing that. And you're not very good at it either. A 5-person jury, so you know, judges the performances and eventually picks the winner, who takes home a very real guitar as their big prize. In the meantime, the event's organizers claim that all bad things in the world, they'll simply vanish when everyone on the planet learns to play air guitar. Or, like engineer Jamie, air accordion, and she's quite good. Either way, they're both fine pretend instruments. Here's a great thing about air guitars. You know, they're never out of tune. And because they're only pretend guitars, you can take them with you when you board a 737, taking you from here to there. And they really don't take up too much space. Maybe you like riding motorcycles like I do. Take your air guitar with you. Even if you crash, the air guitar remains intact. Also, the air guitar strings, Dave, you might not know this, air guitar strings are far less expensive than authentic guitar strings, and they never stretch and they never snap in two. Did you know that?
I did not know that, Bill.
Finally, if you want your very own air guitar, but you can't afford one, the News Roundup to the rescue. Let us know. We will send you your very own News Roundup air guitar absolutely free. All you got to do is send us an email, newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, monitor the email bag. Everybody that checks in, we're going to give them their very own free air guitar. And make sure no shipping, no handling, no fees, no tariffs. Everything is absolutely free. Davey, I dare say, no strings attached.
Okay, Bill. Standing by.
Can I get a hallelujah on that?
Hallelujah, Bill.
That's a look at the lighter side of news, and what are you thinking? Share your thoughts on free air guitars with no strings attached. Fine dining at the Golden Arches, or even knuckleheads who live with incomplete Pez dispenser collections. The email address is newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. One last check of the email bag, Davey, and then the weekend, it's upon us. What do you got?
Well, you know, Bill, people on Friday, you never know what you're going to get.
You never know.
Okay, here's one from Gladys in Vancouver, Canada.
Hello, Gladys.
Gladys says, that Pez dude is obsessive compulsive.
Yeah.
Buying that many of those dispensers in 6 years borders on clinical, and now he wants to get rid of them? He should probably have his head examined.
Yeah, I think the total cost of that collection, fact check me on that, Dave. I think he spent $50,000 over a period of years to put that together.
Yeah, that's what he says. At least $50,000.
At least, and then some. You know, $50,000, that could have gone to charity. That could have gone to anything. Collecting Pez dispensers. What a knucklehead. All right, Gladys, thank you for checking in. Davey, who's next?
I know. I got to defend the guy. I mean, he could put those things in a museum.
What museum would want Pez dispensers?
I bet you any sort of toy museum, Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, any sort of museum that's of any interest would like it. Maybe the Smithsonian.
Maybe the Smithsonian. I was thinking the same thing. Or the Norton Simon Museum right here in Pasadena. You make a very good point. All right, who's up next?
Okay, here's one from Pete in Boston, Massachusetts.
Hiya, Pete. Great to hear from you.
Pete says, hello, Sherlock. If you want to try one of those big arch deals, just go to Mickey D's and order a double quarter pounder with an extra slice of cheese. Then tell those knuckleheads to throw on some lettuce, pickles, and onions and smother it in Big Mac sauce. Duh.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. A couple of quarter pounders with 3 slices of cheese, secret sauce, onions, lettuce, tomato. David, that just sounds like a heart attack in waiting. Nothing wrong with fast food as long as you do it in moderation, but making things bigger and bigger every year. We had a big problem years ago, you'll recall, with supersizing everything, right? They were kind of forcing this upon people. They make it bigger and bigger and bigger. You're going to get people sick and a variety of health complications as well, yes?
Well, the only problem with supersizing is that they got rid of it, Bill.
Finally got rid of it because I think there was an uprising. Too many people were getting ill. Nobody needs a supersize. Nobody needs a 40-ounce Coke and a 1-pound bucket of French fries and a double or a triple cheeseburger. A quarter pounder with cheese, that's going to satisfy you. That'll do you just fine. You don't need a double quarter pounder with cheese and 3 slices of cheese. You're going to get sick. Be careful, man. All right, David, who's up next?
Okay, Bill. Here's one from Saul in Nashville, Tennessee.
Saul, bring it on. Since you are calling from Music City, Nashville, perhaps he has a question about the air guitars.
Well, he has a comment about them, that's for sure. He says, most of those air guitarists are better than the real thing.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single band whose lead guitarist can compare with their antics, and I'd rather watch this contest than go to a concert any day of the week.
Yeah, I think if Eddie Van Halen were with us today, he would just be rolling his eyes right now. You want to play guitar? Take a couple of lessons, plunk a couple of strings. How hard can it be to play a guitar? Piano, that's very difficult. There are 88 keys. Some of them are black, some of them are white. I have no idea what they do, but 88 keys and a couple of pedals on the ground as well. A guitar, that's got to be pretty simple. It's only got 6 strings. And then the violin's got to be even easier than that. Davey, a violin's got to be one of the easiest instruments to play, right? Because there's only 3 or 4 strings. Would you agree?
I think it's probably pretty difficult, Bill, but an air violin, that's something different.
That'd be quite a sight to see. And then there's the trumpet. How simple would that be? There's only 3 tiny little buttons. That's got to be the easiest thing in the world to play. And now it is time for us to call it a wrap on the Aloha Friday edition of the Big News Roundup. But before we go, and as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote. And these words of wisdom, they come to us today from Milton Friedman, who said, "The greatest advances of civilization, whether in architecture or painting, in science and literature, in industry or agriculture, they've never come from centralized government." So, you know, Friedman was a renowned American economist who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1976 and who later served as an advisor to U.S. President Ronald Reagan. I absolutely adored Milton Friedman, Davey. And this just goes to show that after your first career, you can have a second career. This guy, for example, as an economist, you recall his first career, right?
What was his first career, Bill?
He was Uncle Milty, the TV guy, right? Milton
Oh,
Berle?
you're thinking of Milton Berle, Bill.
That's different from Milton. I thought he just changed names and became two different guys?
Two different guys, but Milton Berle was quite an economist himself.
I'm sure he did a fine job managing his funds. And now it is time for us to buckle up and head on out of here. But before we call it a week, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you, but what you can do for your podcast. And yeah, there are a number of things you can do. For example, you can subscribe to the program so you never miss an even just one episode. Follow us on your favorite social media platform as well and show us some love. Score us one of those highly sought-after 5-star reviews. By the way, the News Roundup available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and I think pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere. For now, it looks like our time is officially up, so have an awesome day today. Enjoy your weekend as well, and let's all continue to watch out for one another. I'm not sure how this is all going to pan out right now because out of the corner of my eye, Engineer Jamie, I can see her playing the air guitar, so I hope she has time to gently dim the lights, take us to a fade to black. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.